January 2008. The Boeing 777 is the gold standard for commercial aviation. For more than 10 years, the plane has logged 2 million flights without a single major accident.
Clear to land.
But less than 1,000 feet above London's Heathrow Airport, all that changed.
Pete, I can't get power on the engines.
What do you mean?
It's not giving me power.
This can't be happening. I thought if I don't do anything, then everybody will die.
Mayday! Mayday! Speedbird! Speedbird!
Whatever brought down one of the world's most technologically advanced airplanes can't be found at the crash site.
They had the pilots, they had the passengers, they had the aircraft, they had everything there, except the thing that caused it. That had disappeared, as if by magic.
Mayday! Mayday!
British Airways Flight 38. A 10.5-hour journey from Beijing to London. Captain Peter Burkill has made this trip many times before.
I was operating that route a lot. It was one of my favourite flights because it was daylight. You could see the views the whole way along the route.
Burkill and First Officer John Coward both have thousands of hours flying the 777 under their belts.
It's a joy to fly. She handles really well. She's got modern equipment. The computers are easy to use. She's got the range, the ability to do short haul as efficiently as long haul.
For these two, as for many pilots, a day on the job consists of sitting in the cockpit for long hours as computers fly the plane. Powered by two massive Rolls-Royce engines, the Boeing 777 is one of the safest planes in the industry. Nick Harris is flying back to London after a business trip to China.
The good thing was it seemed to be that we were coming in early into Heathrow. I was looking forward to getting home to see the family.
Flight 38's destination is Heathrow Airport, one of the busiest international airports in the world. Nestled in the southwest corner of London, it's bordered by the A30 motorway. People who live in the nearby neighbourhood of Hounslow are well accustomed to the sound of jets taking off and landing. The area's tightly packed houses come into distant view for British Airways Flight 38. The autopilot is in control as the crew lines up with runway 27 left. As it nears the ground, the plane is buffeted by some high winds.
Just a little turbulence.
It's the first wrinkle in an otherwise smooth journey.
It's not me, that's the auto throttles doing their thing.
We were picking up wind gusts of about 20 to 30 knots, and we were fully aware that the auto throttles would be able to cope with that, so they'd be moving up and down quite a lot.
You might want to keep the autopilot on a little longer than usual, and to let the wind come down.
Will do.
In turbulent weather, the autopilot can make faster adjustments to keep a plane level than the pilots. 1,200 feet above ground.
I'll have to turn that off for now, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
2 minutes before landing, Coward takes over flying the plane.
You have control?
Just as the two pilots had planned.
I have control.
I had a few seconds to spare before clearance to landing, and I was just tidying up my map charts.
Speedbird 38, prepare to land 27 left.
Cleared to land 27 left, Speedbird 38.
I remember looking out to see if our gate was available.
500 feet. 500 feet.
Stable?
Well, sort of.
Suddenly there's a problem.
Pete, I can't get power on the engines. It's not giving me power. What's going on?
What do you mean?
I was looking at the engine instruments and they didn't make sense to me because we were asking for full power, but the engine instruments were not giving us any power at all.
What's going on?
Flight 38 is crippled in the worst way imaginable.
Well, it looks like we have double engine failure.
With neither engine providing enough power, the jet won't make it to the airport. With 152 people on board, Flight 38 is falling toward London with only seconds until it hits the ground.
This can't be happening. This is one of the most modern jets in the world.
In the cabin, there's no indication that anything's gone wrong.
On approach to land, everybody seemed relaxed in the cabin. We were just looking forward to landing.
Airspeed low. Airspeed low.
Airspeed low.
And now I was looking at our impact point. I could see a set of buildings around the Hatton Cross area and a petrol station. I just knew if we were hitting those, then it was certain 100% fatalities. At that point, I felt the weight of my 4 bars on my shoulder. I am the captain. If I don't do anything, then everybody will die.
This close to the ground, Burkill doesn't have many options. He could take back control of the plane from Coward, but doesn't think that's the right move.
First decision really was to not take control. I remember looking over at John. He was still flying the plane well. Good, he's doing a good job. He's doing what I need him to do.
Burkill knows that even if they manage to clear Hounslow, the jet could still smash into the busy A30 motorway or the antennas at the edge of the airport.
I thought about raising the gear. That's the biggest drag on a commercial jet. But I needed the gear to crash on. We were going to impact, and that was going to take the brunt of the impact, so I had to leave the gear down.
With a crash imminent, Burkill has only one move left. But it comes with enormous risk.
I knew I had about 15 seconds to make a huge decision. I needed to get past those buildings. It was obvious to me that I needed to raise the flaps.
Retracting the flaps will reduce drag but also lift. The plane will fly further but drop faster. Burkill must determine which is more important.
I wanted to discuss it with the crew, but this was all in a matter of seconds. I remember holding that lever for a fraction of a second.
He hopes this move will help his plane avoid catastrophe.
The effect was immediate.
Now Burkill makes the announcement every pilot dreads.
Mayday! Mayday! Speedbird! Speedbird!
It was hard, very hard. I remember the couple of impacts and the noise.
Good God!
The landing was hard. Just a huge bang. The noise, bits falling off the ceiling.
Then I also became a passenger because we were now in an uncontrolled aeroplane. We were sliding along the ground and I didn't know what we were going to hit next. And then I thought about my wife and kids and I said goodbye to them.
The lights went out.
I could hear the wreckage breaking up. And then we stopped. When we actually stopped, I was surprised that I was still there. And then I looked round the flight deck and I was more surprised to see that all 3 of us were unscarred.
Everybody stay seated with your seatbelts fastened!
And I quickly became the captain again.
The crew switches off the fuel,
APU fire switch.
hydraulic and electrical systems.
Control switches. Cut. Checklist complete.
I then had to look after my survivors. I thought 20% were dead because this aircraft was broken up.
This is an emergency. Evacuate! Evacuate!
The air stewardess then took control completely. And as she opened the door, I smelt the fuel.
We should hurry.
And realized that we need to get off this aircraft.
The big danger now is fire. Having survived the landing, passengers could be killed if flames sweep through the jet.
Jump! Jump!
I left all my luggage and just got myself down the slide.
Jump!
Let's get out of here.
I went through the galley and checked the right-hand aisle, and I was surprised to see nobody there.
Despite Burkill's fears, there are no casualties. Outside in the cool January air, the scale of the disaster is clear.
The right wheel had actually been ripped off during the impact. The engines were just sad. They were all ripped apart. The cowlings were ripped off, and the engines were half buried. It wasn't an aircraft anymore.
I now start to realize that we've been involved in a major accident. I saw the damage to the undercarriage and to the wing.
The plane narrowly missed the A-30 and the antennas at the foot of the runway.
It could have been total devastation. If the impact had been on anything other than soft mud and grass, the likelihood of a fire was immense.
Given the amount of damage, it's incredible that only 47 people were injured.
I felt quite lucky that I was still alive. It was quite a surreal feeling.
From China, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown praises Burkill and the crew.
I think it's right to pay tribute to the calmness and professionalism of the British Airways staff, the captain, Peter Burkill, for what he achieved in engineering a landing that protected lives.
Investigators have some early hunches about what caused the engines to fail. They also have plenty of clues, but a key piece of evidence is already missing.
Heathrow's emergency planning swung into action.
The crash of British Airways Flight 38 dominates the news. It's the most serious accident at Heathrow in 30 years.
Heathrow Airport is a very busy airport. It is the main airport in the UK, so anything that happens in Heathrow Airport immediately hits the media.
More significantly, the 777 is one of the world's most modern and reliable jets. The accident unsettles the airline industry.
The 777 is as safe as an airplane can be. It had such a superb safety record. What on earth happened? You don't like not knowing whether it might happen to the rest of your fleet.
Investigators quickly arrive on the scene. Phil Slight is the lead engineer for Britain's AAIB, the Air Accidents Investigation Branch.
When you first approach an accident site like this, the first thought you've got is, where do I start? The plane landed about 1,000 feet short of the runway. The landing gears pushed up through the wings. The nose landing gear collapsed.
Just hours after the crash, investigators interview the crew. Captain Peter Burkill has a first-hand account of what happened.
I think I wanted to talk about it because I knew of the innocence of the whole crew.
This isn't our fault. We didn't do anything wrong.
But the engines weren't giving us any more power.
Well, it looks like we have double engine failure.
We tried to give them more power manually, but there was nothing.
Burkill explains that something had caused both of the jet's Rolls-Royce engines to roll back at the same time, robbing the aircraft of power.
Acceleration on both.
When you hear something of a double engine failure, you start looking at what's common. What could cause both engines to fail at the same time? So our first thoughts were that it may have run out of fuel.
A fuel shortage is rare, but it has happened before. In 1983, a Boeing 767 ran out of fuel flying over central Canada. A mistake in converting between metric and imperial measurements left the plane with much less fuel than the crew thought. At 26,000 feet, they lost power to both engines. The captain was able to glide the plane to a safe landing at an abandoned airbase